Yes, you read it right. I bought a plane. It's not that one, that's just a random one that's sitting in the background, but I'll give you the introduction to see if you can guess it. Make and model, 20 internet points up for grabs. No, I was just kidding before. That red plane behind me, that was a Piper Arrow. And the Pipers, they're great planes, don't get me wrong. I did my navigation training in a Piper Warrior. I did my instrument rating in the Arrow. Awesome planes, but no, not what I bought on this occasion. Before I start, a quick story. That's a picture of me at the Biggin Hill Air Show back in the early 1990s. That's my mum next to me. And yes, my mum did used to cut my hair, but please don't focus on that. We used to go every year. I remember it just like it was yesterday. The sounds, the smells. I used to remember the RAF Red Arrows that used to fly overhead, the huge RAF Vulcan that used to do flybys. So I've been interested in aviation since quite a young age, as you can see, and I've been flying for about 14, 15 years now. But I honestly think that if you do fly, there comes a point in time when you start to ask yourself that question, should I stop renting aircraft? Should I buy one for myself? You do all those calculations in your head, you get your spreadsheets out, you do your renting column, your buying column, you weigh up the costs. And for me, to be honest, there was never a justification for the amount of flying that I was doing to say that buying an aircraft was ever going to be more cost effective than renting an aircraft. Until recently. All right, enough talk. What were your guesses then on the make and model of the aircraft? If you guessed Cirrus as the manufacturer, you'd be correct. And if you guessed a Vision Jet, you would be wrong, because that's a lot of money, and let's be realistic here, guys. If you guessed an SR-20, no, not quite. It's a great aircraft, don't get me wrong, and a brilliant place to start if you're flying Cirrus, but not an SR-20. But if you guessed SR-22, you would be right. Not a turbo, just a normal Cirrus SR-22. And what's the most famous Cirrus SR-22 on this channel? No, I didn't buy Kilo Juliet November. She's still in the hangar over there, of course. No, instead, I bought this. I'm really happy. I really like it. Now, it's basically exactly the same aircraft as Kilo Juliet November. It's a Cirrus SR-22. It's a G3. They basically rolled off the production line only a couple of months apart. Now, EYZ is a little bit older. I like to think of this as the more mature and experienced sister. The interior is almost identical too, and I'll show you that in a second. But there are a few key differences between Echo Yankee Zulu and Kilo Juliet November. Let me show you what those are. First of all, I don't know whether you can see here on the leading edge of the wing, this is actually a metal strip with thousands and millions and billions of tiny little laser drilled holes, which is part of what's called the Cirrus Basic Icing System. Now, you may have heard of TKS, that's the liquid that gets pushed out of the leading edge of the wing here, and it does mean that if I start to pick up icing on the wing, if I'm flying through cloud in freezing conditions, I can push this liquid out using a switch, which I'll show you in the cockpit in a second, and that can actually help to get rid of some of the ice that's building up on the leading edge. Now, importantly, that doesn't mean that this aircraft is certified to fly into icing. This is not what's called a FICI, Flight Into Known Icing aircraft. It's basic icing. It's basically a get out of jail free card. If icing is building up, I can turn on the TKS and get rid of it. It definitely doesn't mean that I can plan to fly into icing conditions. And to be honest, if this was a FICI aircraft, I don't think I ever would anyway, because icing scares them. Another difference between Kilo Juliet November and this aircraft is that, unfortunately, one of the propeller blades has fallen off Echo Yankee Zulu, so it only has 3 as opposed to KJN's 4. Now, don't tell Stephen and Mark, who own KJN, I actually think I prefer the 3 to the 4. Shh. And one other key difference, it's not a very sexy one to be honest, but the oil tank in this aircraft is smaller than the one in Kilo Juliet November. KJN's actually got a bigger oil sump, it can take up to 12 quarts. This is just the standard oil tank. Like I said, not sexy at all. So inside, it's basically exactly the same aircraft as Kilo Juliet November. This should all look very familiar to you if you've watched the videos on this channel before. It uses the Avidyne avionics as opposed to the Perspective, which is the newer avionics based on like the Garmin G1000 if you've flown those before. Don't get me wrong, I know you can do a lot more with the Perspective system than you can with Avidyne, but for me and for my kind of flying, which is IFR flying, so instrument flight rules, but pretty basic, straightforward IFR flying, I love the simplicity of this system. Down the center console then you've got your comms panel at the top, 2 Garmin G430s, digital autopilot, the Avidyne DFC90 autopilot, which I love using. You can climb at an indicated airspeed, you can descend using vertical speed, really versatile and very accurate autopilot, and really useful when you're flying instrument flight rules in this plane. Switches along here. Here's the difference than KJN. This is where you turn the ice protection, the TKS system, on and off. Got 2 options, normal and max flow, and then the lighting and everything else along here is the same. But apart from that, as you'll see, everything looks basically exactly the same as Kilo Juliet November. Everything's in the same place. Everything kind of looks the same. So that means I've already got this real sense of familiarity with what's going on here in this really nice, clean, decluttered cockpit. 2 seats at the front, couple of seats in the back. Milkshake's obviously going to go here. CAPS ballistic parachute system. Analog fuel gauge, not a digital one. That's fine. Hammer, emergency checklist, spare pens. You get it. I'm really happy with it. I hope you like it too. It does beg the question though, and you may be asking yourselves this, why buy essentially an 11-year-old plane with older avionics in it when on the market nowadays you can get a brand new G6 with the Perspective, you can do vertical navigation, Baro VNavs, flight into known icing. For me, it always comes down to one very simple thing, and that is, what is your mission objectives? Now, of course, there's a financial implication here. Older planes, not as expensive as a brand new plane. Great if you have that kind of money and that's the aircraft you want. For me, I wanted to have an aircraft which was affordable to purchase, which gave me all the basic IFR capabilities that I want for flying, and that's it. I don't need anything else. I don't need fancy avionics. I don't need lights on the wingtips, which are awesome, don't get me wrong, but that's not my mission objective. I don't need that. I'd rather buy an aircraft which is more within my means and use any additional money that I have to then fly it. Now this particular plane as well, it's only got a few hundred hours on the airframe, even though it's 11 years old now. This only has just over 300 hours on it in total. The guys from Blue Demon Aviation, which is just behind me here in Moorabbin, have been looking after this airplane as well, so I know the maintenance history. Actually, just on the subject of Blue Demon Aviation, I do want to say like a big thank you to Mark and Stephen and Paul and everyone at Blue Demon who's helped me with the purchase of this aircraft, not only keeping it in the condition that it's been kept in over the years, but also, and I thoroughly recommend you do this if you're thinking of buying a plane, helping me give it a thorough once-over inspection. I'm not going to do one of those name the aircraft for me things because you guys are just going to come up with Planey McPlaneface, and there is no way I'm putting that on the side. Let me know in the comments below if you've got any thoughts or feedback on the aircraft. Thank you for watching, and thank you for sharing like a really important and special aviation moment for me. It's a really big deal, this is, and to be honest, I wouldn't be sharing something like this on the channel if it wasn't for the support I keep getting from you for watching. If you're new to the channel, you're not a subscriber, click on the subscribe button, join the aviation fun here, give us a like if you enjoyed that. Otherwise, I'm just going to go hang with a new friend.